Hello, good evening, and welcome to Outfront. My name is Raymond Alcott. Tonight's a potpourri of issues. Now, the Director of Research of the NDC, a former NIA boss, that is Dr. William Aji, has been given a damning verdict on Ghana's current state. He's been saying that the political stability in Ghana is deteriorating at an alarming rate, and this must be checked as soon as possible. He's actually saying that Ghana is slowly sinking. We'll be getting into the details of that and subjecting that to the necessary scrutiny it requires. But before then, we know that Radio Gold and also one other radio station, XYZ, has been shut down by the NCA. In a matter of minutes, the MCA is supposed to address a press conference and tell us what really are the reasons behind this. We'll be giving you every single update needed from that particular end and ask the tough questions to the people who carried out this act and the people who run these stations pretty soon. But before then, earlier, the CID have been justifying their decision why they wanted the NDC's national chair, Samuel Ofosu-Ampofo, to come and cooperate on some issues of kidnapping and things that may make the state not so much in a stable state. Now, his lawyers have been writing to the CID. They are insisting that Mr. Ofosu-Ampofo is not going anywhere. They have also raised some concerns about the conduct of that particular office and why they think that it's becoming more partisan and biased in these operations. I have on the line now, perhaps that's a very wonderful place to start from, a former Deputy Attorney General and lawyer for Mr. Samuel Ofosu-Ampofo, Dr. Dominic Aine. Doc, you're welcome to Outfront.
Thank you very much for having me, Raymond.
Doc, let's start from this particular basis. Ordinarily, the expectation of yourself and all law-abiding citizens is that if a legitimate state agency, security one of that height, invites you, you are expected to comply. Why is it that Samuel Ofosu-Ampofo, perhaps on your advice, is refusing to comply with such a simple directive as come help us get to the bottom of a matter of importance to everybody in this country?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very legitimate question. And I am sure you have read the letter that we sent to the Director General of the Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police Service. In that letter, we made it abundantly clear that much as there is a constitutional duty, to assist law enforcement in the detection and prevention of crime. And much as we recognize that as a citizen, a law-abiding citizen, the Honorable Samuel Ofosu-Ampofo has that constitutional duty to assist in the investigation. We think that in the context of the ongoing criminal prosecution that is taking place, in respect of which he was interrogated, he was arrested and interrogated by the police for several hours, and in respect of which the issue came up regarding the kidnapping as a possible offense, and the charge of kidnapping was dropped. We think, from a legal technical point of view, that this purported investigation a further investigation into issues of kidnapping and arson is collateral to the ongoing criminal trial that is taking place in the High Court Commercial Division. And therefore, in our estimation and our review of the evidence that has been made available to us by the Attorney General, we think that it is going to undermine the right of our client to a fair trial. And therefore, we have advised him to not cooperate as far as this particular investigation is concerned.
Get into public ridicule in the process of doing so.
Can you come?
I'm asking, are you not leaving the police with just the option of having to arrest the man, subject him to public ridicule in the process of doing so?
Well, I don't think that is the intent of our letter. The intent of our letter is to draw the attention of the police to the fact that there is an ongoing criminal prosecution, that is based upon a tape recording, in respect of which the police had said that the national chairman of the NDC, had allegedly, said something to the effect that he was going to lead the NDC to engage in kidnapping. And therefore, you cannot fail to see the connection between what is going on in the court and then the purported attempt to investigate him again. Now, Raymond, if the Ghana police have, substantial evidence, or they have probable cause to believe that he has actually committed the offense of kidnapping, I think it is incumbent upon them either to amend the charge sheet, by making that evidence available to the Attorney General and add the charge of kidnapping to it, and of course arson, as they said, or they can make that evidence available for us to be able to evaluate it and see whether or not it is credible. But for us, to sit idle and then allow him to be arrested again and be investigated while the criminal prosecution is going on, I think it's prejudicial to the case that we are trying to make in court, and that's why we decided to advise him not to cooperate.
Now, the understanding we get to some of these engagements is that, and I'm sure you've heard the direct claim, we've also seen your statement, you seem to suggest way beyond that. You seem to suggest that the CID currently and its leadership are not very friendly to the cause of the man Samuel Oposampofol and the NDC in general.
Well, we lawyers act on the instructions of our clients, and of course, we provide professional legal advice. Yeah. But our client also feels strongly that this is political harassment. And that harassment has constitutional and legal implications. If the Ghana Police Service is using state institutions to harass, a law-abiding citizen who is in the conduct of, who is involved in the conduct of politics, it is something that we need to point it out to the police. So I don't. Do you have that our statement? Hello, Raymond. Hello, Raymond.
Yeah.
Hello, are you there?
Yes, I was still listening to you when you're making the point about acting not directly on the advice of your client in this particular matter. But the understanding here is that the language you use suggested that you have grounded evidence to suggest that the police is not only being biased, but the current leadership has something very sinister against the man.
Well, I don't think that it is right to say that they have something very sinister against him. Basically, the point we are making is that there is an undeniable pattern that is emerging of the institution itself. Using all the leverages at its disposal to harass the national chairman of the NDC, and for us, that is unacceptable because the Constitution guarantees him certain rights. His right to human dignity, for instance, is being violated. Day in and day out, he's being treated as if he's a common criminal, just because of the contents of the leak, the leak tape that they have, which we think, doesn't say anything beyond what is contained, in it. Okay. So for us, the point we want to make is that when state institutions are used constantly, to harass, a law-abiding citizen, that is an abuse of power, and we needed to point that out, to the CID of the Ghana Police Service. Would he resist arrest? We will not we will not advise him to resist arrest. We will never do that. What we have said there is not under arrest. If he's under arrest, we will certainly not advise him to resist arrest. Now, the final question I have for you on this particular matter is the issue of kidnapping is important to many of us in this country, including fire outbreaks too. If the police is saying you can help us unravel or get to the bottom of the matter, why do you think it's not wrong that a Ghanaian is refusing to cooperate with that kind of institution, especially when we have been, even here at JoyNews,
leading campaigns, asking for the girls to be returned and all of that. Is the conduct of the man not against national interest?
Yeah, Raymond, our letter does not seek to downplay the importance of unraveling, the call it mystery surrounding the kidnappings that are taking place. If our law enforcement agencies were working assiduously, if they were working effectively, and if they were on the beat all the time, they would at least have apprehended some of the criminal elements that are directly or indirectly responsible for what is happening. Now, remember this: the issue, the kidnapping and fire outbreak, predates Opusan Popo's statement that was leaked, through the recording, the illegal recording in the party head office. So it is not the case that Opusan Popo has been involved in any kidnapping as such. All right? There is no credible evidence that he has been involved in any kidnapping or in any way marginally associated with kidnapping or acts. Okay? The police are jumping on the statement, didn't even, which wasn't, we have taken the view that the tape is doctored, and we will be challenging its authenticity in court.
Doc, right? We are speaking to different evidence. The police says there are people in custody who are saying that the man can help Ghana unravel this matter. It has very little to do with the tapes that's actually been made available. The people in custody that the police has arrested, those are the people who are pinpointing that the NDC chair can help them or can help the nation's security get to the bottom of this matter. My concern is, what do you think should be the disposition of the families in Takoradi?
Raymond, you see, under normal circumstances, supposing for the sake of argument that this were the first time that the police were inviting him, that his name has come up in connection with kidnapping or arson or some other offense, okay, it would have been untoward of us as lawyers to have said that he should not cooperate with the police. But mind you, there is a backdrop. There is a context within which we are, making the case to the police that this second attempt to interrogate him on issues of kidnapping will have some collateral damage to the case that is being made in court. All right? Because there was an attempt to charge him with, kidnapping in the first instance.
Okay.
And that was dropped.
Okay. Now, finally, do you think that, and has he told you anything that relates to recent kidnappings and fire outbreaks? Has he made any revelation to you as his legal team that he knows something about it and can help the security agencies?
The chairman has not told us anything about that. And Raymond, even if he did, I have an ethical responsibility not to divulge that information to you.
I get you. So you have a status of confidence, and we know for sure he knows nothing about these kidnappings and fire outbreaks.
I am very confident that he's an honorable man. He's not a common criminal, and it is, unacceptable to treat him as such.
And yet he will not go. But thank you so much, Dr. Dominic Ayinde. I appreciate your time today on Upfront. And he is lawyer for Samuel Opusan for the national chairman of the NDC. I did tell you about this article that was put up today. The article was from the very pen and manuscript of Dr. William Ahaji. He's actually a leading member of the NDC today, but he's also been a stalwart in academia in so many parts of it, like a former NIA boss in that particular end. The article says that Ghana is slowly sinking. Indeed, it goes ahead to make reference to political stability in Ghana deteriorating at an alarming rate, and this must be checked as soon as possible. He moves on to say that there's a false sense of invisibility on the part of power holders. We are witnessing, as the statement continues, and the statements on your screen too, a descent into demagoguery. Many state institutions have been both become enfeebled and politicized to a point where they have lost the ability to think and act objectively. The other part he makes reference to, he's also calling for, he says, some office holders who by their nature, the nature of their work should display maturity and neutrality are so partisan and infantile in their public pronouncements. One is compelled to label them square pegs in round holes. And he says, I suggest Bosman Asare, and by this I'm sure the reference is to Dr. Bosman Asare, Deputy EC Chair, should be stripped of his post since he represents a clear and present danger to the growth of democracy in Ghana. So on that note, he's got many other points, including unemployment and all of the other points in there. You're welcome to our studios, Dr. Wole Mahaji.
Thank you very much, Ruben.
I hope you are doing well, sir.
I'm good by God's grace.
Yeah, I need us to take this one by one and get to the bottom of it.
But let me make a quick correction. I'm no longer the director of research. I'm now the rector of the Ghana Institute of Social Democracy.
Oh, wonderful. The NDC school.
The Paris school.
Oh,
yes.
wonderful. So you're the rector of that particular school.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Now, you paint a gloomy picture of Ghana's current state.
Yes.
Beyond partisan considerations, what's the evidence to suggest that Ghana is slowly sinking?
Well, I indicated in that little piece that I have been the governance consultant to the government of Ghana, the National Development Planning Commission, since 2003.
Okay.
And every year.
2003 to which year?
To 2016.
To 2016?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And every year I write the governance section of the annual progress report that the NDPC produces every year. And in that context, I said that.
So forgive me, for the last 13 years between 2003 and 2016.
Every year.
Every single year.
Except when I was in NIA.
Okay. You were the governance consultant.
Yes, to the NDPC.
To the National Development Planning Commission.
Yes.
And said your responsibility was to write which specific reports?
Every year, NDPC writes an annual progress report on the entire country.
Okay, progress reports.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's on education.
So that's the basis for these claims you are making?
No, I'm saying that I haven't seen this level of fragility before. I've done a lot of things. I was a senior fellow at IEA on governance.
Yes.
I've been a governance advisor to governments in Africa. So I come into this conversation with a lot of experience. Of course, I'm a sociologist and a political scientist, and I've taught in the university as well. So I know exactly what I'm saying. And there are indicators of political stability. There are governance indicators as well. And so when you see a deterioration in those indicators, then you know there's a crisis.
What are the signs that Ghana is slowly sinking?
No, I've indicated some of them. That the fact that press freedom is under threat.
And the evidence suggests that is exactly what?
That's the point I'm making.
I'm saying, what is the evidence suggests that press freedom is under threat?
You want me to mention Manasseh Zuri, for instance? That came from your own context.
I get that.
Yes. So there's an index that is used every year, and we're slowly going down on that index. It's there out there.
I see.
It's issued every year by Transparency International and all of those ones. And so I am saying that looking at all of these dimensions of governance, we are not looking good. And we should reverse that as quickly as possible, because many countries that have experienced these kinds of deficits in governance indicators have slowly degenerated into violent conflicts. They erupt into violent conflicts. And
is that what's going to happen here?
That's what we're trying to avoid. That's what we're saying, that look at Liberia, look at other countries around.
Is this not an exaggeration?
It is not an exaggeration. I'm telling you, it's not an exaggeration. It took just comment by somebody on a radio station to spark an entire genocide. So there's no
of course,
question.
But there's history. There was cement fire. That country has history to it. A history we don't necessarily have in this country.
In conflict analysis, there are two things you have to consider: the structural problems and then the triggers. The structural problems exist. Ghana is typically polarized.
Along partisan lines?
Along partisan lines, sometimes even along ethnic lines.
Really? In this century today?
Definitely. And we are pretending we don't have governance challenges. We do have governance challenges.
Yes, virtually every state has governance challenges. But you say that stability is deteriorating at an alarming rate.
You don't think so?
I'm just looking out for the evidence to back it. The things you were telling me and the things that are being put out there in this is the things that I've seen happen consistently in this state.
Well, that's the point I'm making, that they don't occur at the same level today. I mean, in the run-up to the 2016 elections, people said unprintable things, but who chased after them? Nobody did. It is their right to speak. People called the incumbent government names. Nobody complained about it. Nobody said, well, you're trying to attack our president. Well, what name wasn't His Excellency President Mahama called incompetent, is corrupt? And when Matiamidu was asked to justify that, he said it was perception. I mean, that was sufficient, or in today's Ghana, that would be sufficient for you to be hauled to the CID or someplace and say you are denigrating the image of the president.
That has happened in this country?
No.
Somebody's been hauled to the CID for denigrating the name of the president?
No, well, I'm saying, I'm illustrating the point that I'm making.
Okay, yeah.
That the way things look, I mean, there are people out there who are so intolerant of criticism. And if you don't allow your government to criticize, sometimes it's constructive criticism. You don't have...
And this is this government?
Yes, this is exactly what is happening now that we're talking about.
The government is intolerant of criticism.
Well, what else can we say? What's happening now?
But the president has stated categorically before.
You see, when we talk about the system, we are not talking about the president. The president may be a very upright man who upholds the virtues and the values and the principles and the rights. Okay. But there are people around in the political system who do things that endanger the lives of others, that violate the rights of others.
You talk about culture of silence. That's an interesting point.
It is, isn't it?
Yes. And you said there's a de facto, in reality, imposition of some form of culture of silence. How is this evidenced?
But I mean, what didn't we experience with civil society groups, the clergy, issuing statements about goings on in Ghana, not necessarily attacking, but expressing worry about the things that were happening in Ghana.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
You don't find that anymore. Why? No, they are not speaking. People were very vocal. They were very, very...
Maybe they are okay with the current system.
Oh, they are.
Maybe they are okay with the current system.
Well,
but that's not an evidence to suggest that there's a culture of silence. If people decide on their own that maybe they are okay with the current system, so they won't speak out, that cannot be evidence of culture of silence.
But I'm just illustrating that to you. I'm only praying that when I leave this studio, nobody attacks me for speaking my mind.
I'm sure nobody will attack you.
I'm being a citizen, not a spectator. But I think basically this attempt to muffle, this attempt to muzzle, indeed, prevent people from expressing their views, however negative they are, it's not healthy.
You said that there's abuse of power of some security institutions too.
Oh, there's a clear example that we're seeing. That's what the lawyer
so
succinctly put.
The invitation, not even arrest. Invitation.
But he gave you a legal dimension of it. You have a case in court, and this was one of the issues you raised initially, the charges you raised initially.
But he was not charged with that.
Yes, but if you have evidence, why don't you submit that to, and then ensure that that is also used against, because you're the same person who took him to court.
Look, I find it difficult to understand why there is there's some level of prejudice against the police invitation. We say that we have some inkling that the people who have arrested say that you are involved in the matter. But let's speak to you.
Yes.
Because kidnapping is important in this country.
Two things. You have to exercise discretion in dealing with a high-profile person like that. That's number one.
That was not done.
That wasn't done. Number two, you see, when you're talking about kidnapping, you have to be very, very, very careful. Okay. Because you're dealing with a situation where the lives of people will be in danger. And so you'll be extremely discreet about it. You don't go public, because the kidnappers do it for a reason. And you don't go public shouting that, well, we've been told that they can kill the people they've kidnapped. If there is indeed anybody who's been kidnapped, they can kill them, because they know that somebody is coming after them. So when you're dealing with issues about security, you don't go public with it. And I was dealing with security matters when I was head of NIA. Nobody knew about it.
Really?
Oh yes, of course you can't disclose
the National Identification Authority.
Of course you can't disclose anything like that.
I see.
Yes.
Now, but the other point that is interesting in what you put out there is you talk about the Electoral Commission too, and that they are also abusing their powers.
I mean, how can a deputy commissioner who is supposed to be neutral point a finger at a government in waiting that they are the danger to democracy? I mean, that
he says so.
Yeah, of course he did. And then he's
going. You mean Dr. Bosman Asare?
Exactly. And that in itself is an open bias to a political party that you have to be neutral to. You don't make statements like that.
But prior to that, you said that some office holders, by the nature of their work, should display maturity and neutrality. And don't think that he did in this case.
No, I don't think so. And indeed...
But is he a square peg in a round hole?
I mean, if you are operating like that, how can you be labeled? Because you don't know your work.
I see.
You don't know your work. Indeed, for the Electoral Commission, the commissioners are not even supposed to be speaking and expressing their personal views. You can't do that.
Maybe if that's the commission's view, as in the Electoral
That's not a commission's view. The commission hasn't come to support that view, that the NDC is a threat to democracy in Ghana. No, I mean, if the commission supports that, then we don't need a commission as a neutral arbiter in any election.
You are suggesting he should be stripped off his post.
I would even want him removed almost immediately, because that it doesn't make him trustworthy when it comes to issues about, declaring electoral
because
results.
A single comment. Single
Is
comment.
it single comment?
Yes, because
the number of he's even put something. I want to assume that's it's an unsigned piece on the website, but I mean, all of those, his demeanor does not give any indication that he's going to be very neutral in the way he's doing things, unless he changes, and we are watching him, and all of them indeed. I worked under Jimesa in IEA.
Yeah.
I would wish that she doesn't speak, and I'm saying it in public, that she doesn't display anger in public. In our language, we say an adult doesn't show the face when you are in pain. You show the backside. You show the pain in the backside. You don't show it in the face. Because everybody is looking up to you. And that's a very sensitive national position. Don't make comments. Let the PRO speak. If they goof, you correct it, you come and correct it. But don't go into meetings and be making comments about somebody laughing or smiling when you're making comments. No, I don't think that's something to be talking about.
Are you not picking on small things? Are you not nitpicking these meetings things? Why should the Electoral Commission that's supposed to deliver on an election be judged? Because prior to delivering on the election, it was having some small squabbles with political parties.
No.
I heard political parties engage what they call it, Dr. Afarijan.
Okay, maybe let me pick a substantive issue then. Let me pick a substantive issue.
Yes.
There's registration that was done for the elections that were held. The issue we've been raising is that you will be in breach of the constitutional injunctions if you did the registration at the district instead of the requirement to take it closer to the people.
Okay.
Yes, and there is this insistence that is what is going to be done. It was done for the referendum, and they scored 47% of what they intended to do.
Yeah.
And you're going to, you see, what you do with a pilot is that you correct the errors, and then, especially if the pilot falls below average, you don't repeat that. But if you're going to repeat that, you are going to scale up the pilot with the same mode of registration, the outcome is predictable.
Now, your call on Dr. Bosman to be removed from office, is it grounded in law?
What can be done? If you can be appointed, it can be taken down on account of not delivering.
That position has some form of protection. So, in this case, the president cannot just go ahead and remove. In fact, the law says that he can only be removed on stated misbehavior.
Well, it's coming slowly.
The things that you have mentioned, do they amount and constitute stated misbehavior?
Do you think that it is right for him to make a comment that a political party that lost power, handed power over peacefully, handed over a country that was that peaceful, is a threat to democracy? You know, if you're a threat to democracy, you either bastardize the political system and stay in power irrespective of whether anybody is won. We didn't do anything like that. So on what basis would he justify claiming that NDC is a threat to, because of what? Because we asked that the approach you're using can disenfranchise other people? I mean, that's not all.
But he cannot be removed just because he made
well, you see, sometimes you can degrade the integrity.
For example, in the case of Shalto and the other two, they were removed because there were specifically some breaches to procurement and other laws in this country.
But you see, some principles run. It's not only grounded in law. Some principles run. If you you are seen. And indeed, you see, in politics in developing countries, if the political opponents perceive you to be a threat to their ascent to power, it can cause a lot of problems. And we would rather advise that they should be careful in the kinds of pronouncements they make.
I get you.
Because that can really trigger, violence that would be unimaginable. It can sweep everybody out. So I'd rather they don't talk.
Okay.
They get the PR to talk than they make statements that reflect their personal positions.
I get your point, and I'm sure maybe they are listening, so they may take.
I want them to listen and then take a cue from that.
Take a cue from that.
Exactly.
And to be fair, we asked Dr. Bosman for comment on this matter. He said he was not going to comment on it.
I mean,
that is what he actually chose to say. Exactly. We'll take a break. When we come back from this break, we'll continue with that conversation on Upfront. Now, I've been telling you that we are keeping our eye on three balls. First and foremost, the NCA press conference currently being held, seeking to explain why Radio Gold and Radio XYZ were shut down today. That particular press conference on our radar. We will also be following the reasons being given in a letter from Samuel, for example, for the NDC's national chairman to the CID and telling them that I'm not coming today, neither am I coming tomorrow. Now, the third issue is Ghana really slowly sinking? That is the observation of Dr. William Ahaji here, who leads the NDC school, the Ghana Institute of Social Democracy. We're sure we'll be back to have more of these. You welcome back. This is Upfront. My name is Raymond Dalkwa. Now, our conversation this evening has been threefold. We start with the people who represent the NDC's national chairman, asking why they are not going to cooperate with the CID on the invitation thrown to them. This invitation, I'm sure you are aware, is purely based on what the CID says, some information they've gathered from some people they've arrested in connection with kidnapping and other crimes in the nation, and he's been mentioned in that conversation. So they want to hear from his side. The lawyers, you heard Dr. Ayine explain why they will not go. The biases they think the CID has displayed over the period against the single man who is already before court, and the likelihood that this will worsen his case in court. That is what their justification is. Now, on the other side, you did hear from us, and we did break that news to you, that two radio stations here in Accra, Radio Gold and also Radio XYZ, they've been shut down. The reasons for the shutdown is what they are explaining to us. Indeed, according to the NCA, these radio stations actually went against some agreed directives of the NCA some time back. That press conference is currently underway, as we understand, and I'm sure we'll give you some more details from the press conference as to where we're able to gather that. The third matter is the man with me in the studio here, and he explained to you between 2003 and 2016. This man was virtually the one giving us our reports on governance in this country to the National Development Planning Commission. He says that we are fast deteriorating in political stability. And he's trying to justify why this is happening. And he says Ghana is slowly sinking. We've just been talking about some of the things that he's been putting out there, which predominantly says that some institutions are failing to live up to expectations. There's abuse of power in the security institutions, the Electoral Commission, the state-owned enterprises, and the public service in general. He also talks about we are witnessing, this is big English, we are witnessing a descent into demagoguery. And one of the words you get introduced to into political science as a course is demagoguery. So when you say that we are witnessing some form of descent into demagoguery, exactly what do you mean?
You know, the
demagogues are like despots.
They exercise power in an extreme manner.
Okay.
Yeah, they
abuse the force.
They abuse the force. They run roughshod over state institutions. You see, the thing.
And in this case, who
the
exactly
problem
this
that we
is?
have? The problem we have is that a lot of political power has been concentrated in the office of the president, and we actually began the process of, pushing for doing advocacy on constitutional amendments to reduce some of the powers of the presidency.
Okay.
Now, this winner takes all thing that was started. There was a group in IEA at the time. I was a member. It was chaired by I think, a member of the Council of State, Honorable Kujeto, Samo Kujeto.
Yes.
We had Father, all of those Buckle, yeah, and then a number of other people. And the point was that too much power has migrated into the office of the president. And if you are not careful, and you have a president who does not want to respect the Constitution, he can do anything. He has the power to appoint anybody, virtually everyone in the system. And you know, what have we seen? 120 something ministers, and he's justified. That can't be right.
But doesn't matter. It's not the delivery that matters. It's not the end that justifies the means.
The president himself came out to openly say that there was hardship. He admitted hardship. You have 123 ministers and you're admitting hardship? No, I mean, clearly there's something wrong.
Now, you mentioned something that's serious, because vigilantism and this related militia engagement have been very important to this state. You said the sincerity of government in dealing with the issue of paramilitary groups is questionable and unconvincing. How do you come to this conclusion?
Haven't we struggled over time to just deal with the issue of this militia
But
issues?
this government put up a bill.
Oh, but that's late.
The first time in our history, a bill seeking to illegitimate all of these groups.
Oh, well, you see, by the time that's been done, all the groups within the political tradition have been integrated into the security apparatus.
Really?
Of course, you know.
Why do you come to that conclusion?
They are called what? Security operatives. That's what they said at the Commission of Inquiry.
Yes, but this is
Short
an
commission.
individual that made the reference in this case. How do you conclude that all of these other vigilante groups will be reintegrated into them? That's a very dangerous act, isn't it?
Is that new? That's not news.
It always
that's
happens.
known. No,
even during the
I'm
NDC
saying
time.
that that's a dangerous precedent.
Yes,
and
yeah.
it's not appropriate. Somebody said he was trained for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
In handling weapons. I've had military training before.
I see.
And it took 6 months. Even that, at the very tail end of it, before you be given some weapon handling techniques.
Okay.
But you see, a weapon in your hand is a very dangerous tool, and that's what exactly happened in
Ayawaso
West Wagon. So you don't do things like that.
That's why we are sitting on the time bomb.
That's why we are questioning the sincerity of government in saying that we want to proscribe these groups, and yet
but
then
it's
beyond
not unfair.
That's fair.
It's not unfair.
We have campaigned for it. I mean,
Has the NDC actually proscribed the hawks?
The NDC has said time and again that we didn't sponsor hawks.
Really?
Yes. As a party.
Is Joseph Yami still part of the NDC?
As a political party. No, you see, an individual.
Is he a leading member of the NDC?
Please, as a political party, I don't even know whether I'm a leading member. We are ordinary members. We are ordinary members of the political party because we serve the people. The people have the power. And therefore, it is not a policy position of the party to create vigilante groups.
But this government has also stated categorically, in the words of the president himself, he doesn't support it, he doesn't believe there should be in existence today, and beyond just words.
You see, the call for proscription began when the government won power.
Yeah.
And we started asking, they went to Kumasi, they created a problem. They came to the Jubilee House, they created a problem.
Yeah.
They've done so many things. All those times, we kept asking that, stop these groups. Proscribe them, stop them. You see, the thing about these militia groups is that if you don't do that early enough, they assume what you call an entitlement spirit. I mean, they've been trained, they are armed. If you don't demobilize them early, then they'll go underground. And that's the risk to stability. And that's what we've been saying all the time. It's come too late. But we accept that it has come, and we probably would want to see more sincerity in it. We are even saying that,
and yet you still unconvincing.
I'm not.
I mean, when you say that it's come too late, but you have said that it has come, it's some admission on your side that there's a lot of work being done in this area.
No, that's fine. But you see, we need to go beyond, because you see, when the issue came up, when the issue about the bill came up, we saw the same people who are supposed to be neutral in the state apparatus, the security apparatus, going on a walk. Meanwhile, the bill is suggesting that you don't want to see them appear anywhere near any political party. Can you trust anybody who does that? No.
So you're saying that we are sitting on a time bomb?
Yeah, it's a keg, a power keg that if we are not careful. And You see, it is good to speak now when you see the signs. I'm a trained political scientist. I'm a trained sociologist. And we can see the signs of imminent conflict. And so we need to draw attention
between which groups?
Within the system. It can happen
that's
anytime.
Confusing.
Who is setting the markets on fire? Is there anybody setting the market on fire?
That's the belief of...
Who is sabotaging?
Sorry. That's the belief of the CID. Is the reason why they are asking your national chairman to come cooperate with them so that we can get to the bottom of the matter.
Who is pouring acid on pylons and collapsing electricity
saboteurs, you are saying.
Why would they be doing that? I mean, it is a reflection of anger. It's a reflection of...
Really?
Of course. Why would you go and...
that the people who want to sabotage the states.
Why would people sabotage the state? Why would people disrupt? Why would people disrupt the political system if they don't have an axe to grind with the political system?
Because being a political scientist, you understand that people will do everything for power. And
exactly.
That's the point. Annexing political power is important to a political parties more than any other thing.
Yeah, but you see, we are running a democratic system and we need to consolidate that.
Yeah.
If you govern in a manner that would make people think that their chances of also acquiring political power are shrinking.
Yeah.
Are shrinking. Yeah. You are leaving them with no option than to disrupt your political system. That's a simple, straightforward fact. You are leaving them with no option than to do things to sabotage you.
All that I'm hearing you say is that the NDC is doing these things.
I didn't say NDC is doing anything. NDC is not doing anything. NDC is not the only political party.
The NDC is the most viable alternative to political power in this country today.
But I can tell you that there are intra-party conflicts.
Yes.
Because you can always get the situation where a group of people within a party will think that others are accumulating wealth on the backs of the work they did. In fact, the militia group, these vigilante groups, at a point in time, they said they worked for the government to come into power, and they are not getting any benefit of that. So they themselves can get angry and disrupt the political system.
You're also saying that there's a deliberate program to bastardize the electoral system. What's the evidence to support this?
You see, gerrymandering is one of the things that you do when you want to gain unfair political advantage.
We are doing redistricting today.
We are doing all of that, and then we are going to
gerrymandering is that
we are going to
create tampering with the current what they call it boundaries,
and you're going to create. We've been told to create more constituencies in your political strongholds. I mean, there's no fairness in that.
But there's no evidence to support this claim that you are making. Even the parliament that's speaking, they don't have any bill before it talking about creation of what they call it. The electoral commissioner stated categorically that it's not even on the front burner.
Well, I'll stand
except
that. I'll stand that down. I'm not going to disclose anything, but I'll stand that down for now. And then maybe when it happens, you can call me back into the studio and we'll have a conversation.
When you say when it happens, you suggest that it may happen.
Because everything points to the fact that there are what happened with this. All of these things that have happened are an indication that, let's look at the political system and see what can give us an advantage. It happens. You can create, but you see, the thing about that is that you can create new constituencies, but there's no guarantee that you're going to win them. But you see, if you give them
there's evidence to show that when we created constituency in 2003 and later on 2014 also, it didn't lead to the people who created the constitution.
I agree with you. So I don't see why anybody should think that that's a way of winning political power.
You talk about Ghana card issuance being part of the some of the problems that we are having in this country today. Why is that? Especially you being from the NIA, who could not successfully roll out this Ghana card issuance.
I like the way you put it. I can tell you that the model they're using is a model that I instituted. But you see, the problem we have with the Ghana card now is just this connectivity problem. It's a big problem. You are going to do instant issuance.
Okay.
And then you have this difficulty in issuing card to people. You ask them to go and come back another day. Why do you decommission the system that was doing the very thing you are doing now? Okay. That's one problem. The second one is that, again, there are speculations that indeed we've heard that there's a program to create a new voters register.
Yeah.
And the Ghana card is going to be the card that will make you eligible for that particular thing. Now, the Ghana card itself is going through all these problems. And then we're hearing about registrations at night of some political party members, you know. So all of these things are giving rise to suspicion that there is a connection between, you know, the issuance of the Ghana card and the preparation of a new voters' roll. So these are some of the things that are giving people the impression that, you know, the government is trying to gain an unfair advantage. And
those are just impressions, not necessarily things that have factual basis to it. Because what you just told me is what's in the open.
Let's not undervalue what perceptions do.
Okay.
You know, because when people begin, I mean, it's just like, and indeed even with the NIA card, biometrics are like banks.
Okay.
Well, if people panic, they can create problems for a bank. I mean, if people panic, there will be panic withdrawal and the banks collapse.
Okay.
In the same vein, you know, you are holding very, very, very personal details of individuals.
Okay.
Now, if people lose trust in that institution, then you are going to have a lot of problems. But you see, the card is not meant for political purposes only. It's a multi-purpose card.
That's true. Two more questions before we end this conversation. The first one is about what you say, that there's growing youth unemployment and government's inability to deliver on its electoral promise of creating jobs. I thought we had NAPCO. I thought the Agri Minister said that almost 1 million jobs have been created in that sector alone.
You see, the issue about unemployment is that when you are talking about job creation, you place that against the level of unemployment. It's not counting the number of people who you are placed under NAPCO or you're doing that. It is a problem that, and in one of the people who reacted was saying, why am I talking about unemployment when it was there under the NDC?
Yes,
it's always been there.
But that's a legitimate question.
That's a very legitimate, and I gave him a legitimate response as well. It's always been there. But you see, there are policy mixes that you can introduce that can stimulate job creation beyond what other political systems can do. For instance, if you invest in social infrastructure spending,
okay,
there's a model that can determine the number of jobs one hospital bed can create. So you run the figures, you will know, and these are sustainable jobs.
I get your point. Now, before we conclude on this conversation, we are told by the NCA that there's an exercise to clamp down on defaulting radio stations, which started today and will continue tomorrow. And this is the reason why Radio Gold and the other station XYZ were shut down. Indeed, on the question of why this happened now, the Joe Anochi, who is the NCA boss, says Radio Gold in 2017 was the category of stations that were fined. Instead of paying up the fine, they went to court and failed in their pursuit. So that's why they had to now come back and come and deal with them. The way forward, according to me, is that they can still apply for fresh FM spectrum following today's action. Of course, I mean, this is to ensure that the authority is able to safeguard the spectrums that's left for the state in a much more meaningful way. Justification, justified decision?
No. I mean, this is just part of the point that we're making, that there's a deliberate attempt to muzzle some of these radio stations that are too critical, that are making duty bearers and power holders uncomfortable. You know, Ghana's democracy.
They didn't pay the fine. They went to court. They lost the case.
So the solution is to close off the station,
isn't it?
Is that the only solution
that you
available?
Sanction people who are failing to comply with the rules and regulations of the state.
Well, I see. He's just said it. We didn't hear that because it got to a point where there was discussion in the background.
Yeah.
Beyond that, have they sent them notices that you are going, if you don't comply by this date is going to be? I mean, you don't come on air and then somebody shows up and said in 2017 you were supposed to have done this, you haven't done it, and so we are closing you down. I mean, let's moderate the way we do things. Okay. Otherwise, we create problems for ourselves. This fine language about, well, it is a case of the breach of an agreement that was reached in 2017 is not going to help matters. It's actually degrading our democratic practice. It's degrading the media freedom that we have struggled to create. We should stop that. I mean, why XYZ and Radio Gold? They are NDC, perceived as NDC stations.
But tomorrow, if they continue, they may actually crack down more than just those perceived as NDC stations. What would be your response then?
I'd like to see that before. I mean, I won't make any comment beyond what I've just said. But I think that NCA should tread cautiously. I mean, they're just adding to the factors that are devaluing Ghana's democracy. I mean, this press freedom is supposed to be one of the key pillars of the democratic practice. And if you start clamping down on the press this manner, you're really not.
This depends on like you. What was the motivation?
Because I'm watching what's going on, and I can see the threats coming big time.
I see.
I can see the threats coming big time. And you see, we need to speak. We need to talk about it. We need to get all those who can speak to speak. They are not speaking.
Doc, I appreciate your time today. Unfortunately, I've run out of time, and many thanks to you for joining us. Well, folks, that's where we end today's edition of Upfront. My name is Raymond Akwa. Dr. William Haji was my guest in studio.
Thank you very much.